Hello fellow FPL managers and welcome to this week's FPL video looking at game week 25, which is tomorrow. I did want to do it a little bit earlier, but unfortunately, one, I wanted to wait for the transfer deadline to finish just in case there were any surprises, and two, I've been pretty sick. I've got paranasal sinusitis, so basically the tubes in my face are all swollen and blocked and stuff, so it's not particularly comfortable, but I did want to get this video out because I do want to be talking about blank and double game weeks. But before we get into all that, we'll be looking at my game week 24 predictions, which you can see behind me, how my team performed, the less said about that the better, my transfers for this game week as well as the starting lineup, and finally we'll be looking at the players to avoid, pick and take a risk on for game week 25. But like I said, the key to this video will be the hot topic of blank and double game weeks and what I will be doing for them personally. So as for my game week 24 predictions, you can see Christian Eriksen blanked 2 points, Trippier 1 point. And I've said this the whole time, when people keep swaying towards Spurs, apart from Kane and Son, I personally don't touch any Spurs players. They've just not done it for me this season at all. So that is, for me, someone to avoid, or a team to kind of avoid near the top that should be doing better, but they're not worth the value of those players. Fraser, despite Bournemouth's amazing result, only got 3 points. Despite scoring 4 goals, he only got the clean sheet bonus, which is quite a surprise. He's usually right in amongst the goals if Bournemouth do score, but unfortunately not this week. But fortunately for me, because that was my prediction, Aubameyang bagged 12 points, did really well. But again, the key talking point here, Hazard. Is it time to give up on him? Right now, no, because he's got Huddersfield at home. And after being smashed 4-0, you expect him to come back at home and do well against the worst side in the division. But this is Hazard. He's known as an FPL troll. So as well as that, talk about blank and double game weeks, he is going to obviously have a double game week, or he should have a double game week. Could even have a triple game week. We're not too sure about that yet. So is there anyone that I want to replace him with? Not yet. The problem with Hazard is, yes, he's expensive. Yes, he keeps blanking, but he's just so good. Like, yes, he's not looking as sharp as he should, but at any moment, at any game week, any team, he could easily just bag a hat-trick or get like 1 goal and 2 assists. And it's the fear of missing out, right? The fact that you don't want to get rid of him. He's so good. He's such a top player. You don't want it to backfire on you. But he is going to survive for at least 1 more week. He is going to be my captain for this week. And then we'll see where it goes from there. Richarlison repaid back some of the faith shown him by the very few of us who still have him in our side by getting 8 points against Huddersfield. Ings only got 2 points in the game at home to Crystal Palace. It was a pretty drab affair, just 1-1 between the two sides, and he didn't get the goal. Zaha did get the goal in that game for Palace. Only got 3 points because he got sent off, so it should have been a tick, but unfortunately he did see red. And then Mitrovic, 13 points. Now, just every time I've chosen him as an outside pick, he has returned very well. Even when there's been a long gap when he hasn't scored for like 4 or 5 games, I've thought now is the game week to go, and he's done that pretty much every single time. So I don't know if I'm a good omen for him or he's a good omen for me, but that is pretty much what is happening so far this season. Now, as for me, the less said about game week 24, the better. I still can't believe I only scored 38 points with the players and the fixtures that I had. Dine had another shocker. He's either high points or minus points. Wan-Bissaka played out a dud game against Southampton and he got booked as well, so we only got 1 point. Only my Wolves duo, Patricio and Johnny, pulled through with 6 points apiece. Sticking with Richarlison, paid back 8 points while Pogba got 7. Again, great form. And the rest was just downhill. Hazard got thumped 4-0 by Bournemouth. So he's putting his neck well on the line for a transfer out. But I mentioned before, I need to keep hold of him for now. Sane blanked against Newcastle, which saw City lose again. Salah blanked against the Leicester City side, who were conceding goals for fun. They were one of the worst defences in form at home against Leicester. Chance to go 7 points clear. They blew it, and I can't believe so many people captured him. And he's blanked twice against Leicester. Leicester have a habit of doing well, upsetting the top teams in the division. And then up top, Firmino blanked in the exact same game. And despite United scoring 2 goals, Rashford was not involved in any of them. No goals, no assists. So when you look at the team and the fixtures they had, I think it's just unbelievable that they only got 38 points. Completely destroyed my Green Arrow. Good bit of form, constantly getting higher than 60 points. But that's football, and that's fantasy football for you. It's not done on paper, is it? You know, before, this team should have got a really, really good score, and then, as you can see, 38 points for the fixtures that they had is extremely disappointing. Anyone that could blank basically did blank, and I think that is the worst score I've got this season, considering as well I didn't take any hits. So what an absolute nightmare of a week. As for transfers, yet to be decided, because the transfer window has just closed. So I want to take a look at who's gone where, what games they now have, and how that'll affect my future, not just immediately, but in the next sort of, well, the rest of the season, basically. So my starting 11 does look like this. Alexander-Arnold, we still don't know if he's going to be fit or not. Dini is obviously injured. Kamara has now gone out on loan. So I do have some suggestions on what I'm going to do, and it is going to involve bringing in a Leicester player and a Bournemouth player, and I'll tell you why later when we talk about blank and double game weeks. As mentioned before, blank and double game weeks are upon us, and I'll give you my suggestions for whatever that's worth. Just a quick reminder, a blank game week is when a team doesn't play, and a double game week is when a team will play twice in one game week, and that's usually because of FA Cup or League Cup games. And it could also happen due to unforeseen circumstances. So if a game gets called off because of weather or because of tragedies, for some reason a game gets called off, they'll blank that game week and double in another. So first, let's look at the FPL blank and double game week guru, and his name is Ben Krillin, and you've probably heard his name all the time. It's often thrown around there, but I thought he deserved a bit of a screen time, more screen time, a bit of a plug to actually see his social media, to go and follow it, because he pretty much is the guide of blank and double game weeks, and rightly so. He'll give you, you can see a spreadsheet here. He'll give you percentages of who will blank, when will blank, cup games, the betting odds, so you can kind of think, okay, so who is looking favorite here. So you see, game week 31, there's a 88.95% chance that United and City game week will blank. So you can start to prepare now already in game week 25 for something that's going to happen in 6 game weeks. So definitely, he is the man to give a follow to, at Ben Krillin. People mention him all the time, and I think he sort of deserves a lot, maybe more recognition, because pretty much we get a lot of our stats about double and blank game weeks from this gentleman. So I would definitely suggest following him on Twitter, and I'd also suggest going to the Fantasy Premier League Reddit. There's 123,000 subscribers, and here you can get advice, suggestions, tips, hints, ask a question, and as a whole the community are pretty welcoming. You know, they might call you a noob at times. Sometimes it can be a little bit toxic, but on the whole, if you have an honest question about something or you need a little bit of help, on the whole, pretty much people are helpful. And a lot of the time you'll see posts where people have said thank you to this Reddit, where they've said, I used to be a 2 million ranked player, now I'm a 200,000 ranked player. So it's pretty cool to see that. Now, many people were saying before about now being the time to play wildcards and chips. The key to this for me is creating a squad, balancing between blanks and double game weeks, and use your wildcard. It's still a risk. That's why I personally just save up 2 free transfers as much as I can, because using your wildcard now means you'll have to effectively bet which teams will go through in the cup games, while also choosing the double and blank game week. So like if I go back to this here, you're literally betting. If you use your wildcard now, you're trying to bet more on the path of who will go through and who will go out. So a tough one to call here is Chelsea and Manchester United. That is a really difficult one to call. United just knocked Arsenal out away from home, which was a great result. But then who's going to win out of Chelsea United? So for me, I would personally just save up your free transfers for now. Maybe wait just a little bit for your wild card if you still have it. A lot of my advice will be for people without the wild cards and without the chips. I'm going to give you like the basic entry of what your squad should look like for now. So coming back to my balancing tip, if we have a look at, again, Ben Krillin's Twitter, he's already pointed out that Leicester, Liverpool, Bournemouth, Burnley and Huddersfield will not do any blank or double game weeks. So if you're going to use your wildcard now, I would suggest having some of these team players in your squad, because what I will do is you've got a squad of 15, right? So having some players that don't do any of them is key, because then you can juggle the couple of players that'll do blanks and doubles in and out, but then your sort of spine of the team who don't do any of them will constantly play 90 minutes. So most people will already have 3 Liverpool players. So if you don't, I would definitely max out on Liverpool players. And then I would consider getting a couple of players from Leicester and Bournemouth. Now, I know for the next couple of weeks, so this week it's fine because Bournemouth have a great fixture, but I know for the next 2 weeks, Leicester have difficult fixtures and then a lovely run of fixtures. So I would personally suggest Liverpool, Bournemouth and Leicester players in your squad. That's step 1, which links to step 2. Now, if you're using your wildcard or not, you should be building a team where 14 or hopefully 15 players in your squad play 90 minutes, give or take a few minutes. This will cover you during blanks and double game weeks, and you don't want to be using any hits, and you don't want to be using your wildcard if you don't have to. So if you look at my squad, I have 13 players who constantly play, not including Kamara, not including Button there. The rest of these players usually play around 90 minutes. Sane, obviously he could get dropped, we don't know what Pep's like, but give or take, this 13 of the 15 here should be playing. Trent being injured hasn't helped, but when I knew I had Wan-Bissaka and Bednarek who'd come on, I would constantly field 11 players who almost play 90 minutes. That makes me feel better going into blank and double game weeks, because having a team to just have 11 players playing in a game week is the first challenge to overcome. It's organizing having 11 players on the pitch and not leaving anyone to spare. That's why it's important to have Liverpool, Leicester and Bournemouth players in and around your squad, and they don't have to be first teamers. They'll just swap in for those that are blank perhaps for a game week if you don't want to use a wild card and you don't want to take a hit. My third tip is to actually look at the teams and compare their fixtures with each other, and here is where your fringe players, your not starting 11 players, are the key important ones to study. This is from the proper official Fantasy Premier League page, and it shows you the remaining fixtures all nicely color coordinated. So if you are using your wildcard or you're just starting to use your free transfers to build your squad, balancing the squad between players that will double game week and blank or ones that won't do any of them, this is the chart for you to see. So using my team as an example, my defense, Dini, Trent Alexander, Wan-Bissaka, Johnny and Bednarek. So Trent is my 100% nailed on defender if he's fit, right? Because he plays for Liverpool, he's a good player. He is my strongest defender. Dini is about 75%. That percentage is dropping due to his form, but just hear me out for now. 75%, he should be starting most of the games. So then for my third defender in my 3-5-2 formation, you look at Johnny at Wolves, Wan-Bissaka at Palace and Bednarek for Southampton, and make sure those fixtures don't clash with each other for that third defender slot. So looking at game week 34 and 35 over here, Palace have Manchester City then Arsenal. Southampton have Wolves and Newcastle, and Wolves have Southampton and Brighton. Now, Everton have United in game week 35, so that means perhaps for that game week I'd be playing Trent and Bednarek and Johnny over Dine and Wan-Bissaka. So if you are using wildcard or you're not, you should be organising your players now to complement each other on the fixtures as well as the blank and double game week. So that's why I was talking about Bournemouth and I was talking about Leicester City. You can see Leicester do have 2 really difficult games here, but then from game week 27 all the way to game week 36, they have a pretty decent run. And they don't have any blanks, they don't have any doubles. So you will have a player. So for example, I am looking at Ben Chilwell, the left back for Leicester City. Why? Because he's a player that I could just put into my starting 11 who plays 90 minutes and will have a great run from 27 all the way up to 36 of teams that he will start against. He will basically swap for Trent or Dini as my player that will play every week, and I don't have to worry about blanks and double game weeks. So they are my 3 tips for blanks and double game weeks. Balance your squad by making sure you have teams that won't blank or double, and then sort of on the outside have just a couple of players that will blank and double so you can keep rotating them in and out. Have a core that will play almost every week, and also update that when teams get knocked out of cups. So for example, if United go out of the FA Cup early, something like that, and you know, okay, from now on they're not going to blank or double anymore after game week 31 or 32, then add United to that list and get those in as well. Make sure you've got 14 or even 15 players that play 90 minutes to ensure you do play 11 players during a blank game week. Finally, check your squad's fixtures and make sure they complement each other, because now this is easier to do because there's only 14 game weeks left to check. Everything's nicely colored, so you can see which players and teams combine well together and who to swap in and who to swap out. As for your chips, again, like I said about the wild card, it's completely up to you. For example, a triple captain, wait until a player has a double game week and use it on the double game week player. But I would really not suggest backing Manchester City, and that's because Pep, and even to an extent right now Manchester City, are too unpredictable. The bench boost could also be used in a double game week, and again, that's why it makes it so important to have a full squad that plays 90 minutes, because there's no point in doing a bench boost and you have one or two of your subs that don't even play. So it's a lot more difficult as well this season, and less straightforward in regards to organizing blank and double game weeks, because this season the blanks follow the doubles really quickly. So it's a lot more trickier to navigate, and again, why it's important to save up those free transfers and plan your transfers really in advance, because you don't want to be constantly taking -4 or -8 hits in an attempt just to get 11 players on the pitch. You should be looking to prepare for blanks and doubles, not just for this week for City and Everton, but also from game week 31. Get 14 players that play, make sure their fixtures work well together, and then be able to swap easily with 2 free transfers players that will blank and double, and vice versa. If you still have chips and wildcards, then you're in a really great position, and the advice I've given here is sort of creating a new squad with the foundations that you can sort of complement with the chips, and then you can build from there. So if you do get Liverpool, Leicester and Bournemouth players in your side now, then you don't have to worry for the rest of the season. Just choose players like Salah, Firmino, Mane, or Trent. The problem with Trent is a bit injury prone, but if you've got Salah, Mane and Firmino, you've got 3 quality FPL and 3 quality players there that are going to play pretty much every game week all the way to the end of the season without having to worry about blanks or doubles. So now let's take a look towards the predictions for game week 25, and let's see who to avoid, pick and take a risk on this week. So for my player to avoid, I'm going to say Aubameyang, away to Manchester City, who've probably had a really tough week with Pep Guardiola following that Newcastle defeat, and I would hate to be the team that faces Manchester City after that. They need their title race back on track, and they have been given another chance because Liverpool didn't take advantage at home to Leicester, so they're going to be going out all guns blazing, and Arsenal will be under huge pressure at the Etihad. They've got an injury hit defence, mistake prone at the back as well. So my other choice to avoid would just be the rest of Arsenal. I don't see them doing well at Manchester City this game week. And actually for me, it was pretty tough to choose teams or players to avoid, because I feel like it's a pretty open fixture. The top teams should be doing well this week. It's just interesting to see Manchester City against Arsenal. But if I did have to choose one of the sort of team or fixture to avoid, it would be Manchester United. Pogba is a big doubt for the Leicester game, and the Foxes just have a habit of upsetting the big teams. They've just upset Liverpool, and especially Vardy, who I'll talk about later, just do well against the big teams. My player to pick this week is my own FPL terrorizer, and that's Hazard. I keep saying he's on his last chance, but he's probably not. I can't see myself getting rid of him. He's just he's got too much potential, too much quality that he should be doing a lot better. But if Richarlison can pull back some pride against Huddersfield, I'm sure Hazard, he has to muster up something at home to Huddersfield. I'd also back Son at home to Newcastle. He's returned to Spurs following the Asian Cup. He's still in good form, getting a goal in his return against Watford. And then finally, I'd have to say a City player. Now, when I say a City player, which one is tough due to Pep roulette? I'd say Sane. I'm hoping that because he's in my side. But just choose a City player who you think will play both games. City and Everton both have double game weeks, so you would be leaning towards having those in your side because you're getting 2 for the price of 1. But remember, if you are backing an Everton player, they are going to be playing against Wolves at home, which is great, but then they are going to be playing Man City. Again, it's at home, so if you do feel confident in Everton, that's fine, but I personally would back a City player who you think will play in both games this week. Now, going on to my differentials, the players to take a risk on. The first one up is Joshua King. Bournemouth have just smashed Chelsea, and King has been in good form. He's got 3 goals in the last 2 games, and the Cherries head to Cardiff this weekend. Wilson is out, so King should definitely be starting, and he's only owned by 3.6%, so for me, he's a pretty good differential this week. My second choice here, probably people are going to argue against it. I'm going to say Higuain. He's owned by just 1.5%, and the 9.5 million Chelsea frontman faces Huddersfield in his first home game following that 4-0 thumping by Bournemouth, and this could be the game where he really starts his career, makes his mark. He came off after about 65 minutes against Bournemouth, so maybe this is the game at home, easier match against Huddersfield. Finally, I'm going to say Jamie Vardy. His price actually just dropped to 8.8 million, and only 3.9% of players own Jamie Vardy, and for me he could be a good shout, not just for this week but for the future. I mentioned Leicester's fixture run earlier on in this video, but for now the Foxes have 2 tough games, but Leicester, and especially Jamie Vardy, love playing against the top teams, and Vardy has an excellent record against the best teams in the league. Also, like I said, after these 2 game weeks, Leicester have a wonderful run of fixtures, so maybe get him now because he will be good for, I think, what did I say earlier, about 8 game weeks. And final note, Vardy is also immune to the double and blank game week. So if you do get him in, he will play, unless he gets injured or dropped for some reason, he should be playing every week from now until the end of the season with no blanks and no double game weeks. So that's it for a look at game week 25, and that's my plan for blank and double game weeks. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below your plan to tackle the tricky task of juggling teams and players with blank and double game weeks. Sorry if it was a little bit messed up. I do have ideas. I'm hoping it's a little bit clear. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. And thanks for watching, and as always, have a good one.